kind of jumped out at me a little bit. 25th year as head coach. It's hard to believe that I'm third in the SEC in seniority behind John Calipari and Frank Martin. I kind of feel like I just got here still. We, with 5 seniors and 9 newcomers, I don't know that I've ever had a roster that was so experienced on one end and so inexperienced on the other end. So the seniors are ready to go, and a lot of the newcomers are still trying to learn where to go. And so that's going to be a very interesting challenge as we get started. The non-conference schedule, we got 10 teams in the non-conference at 20 that won 20 or more last year. 8 earned postseason bids just in the non-conference. So I think it's a really challenging schedule with some really interesting opponents. Starting off with Davidson in the Armed Service Classic there at Annapolis. Nobody plays Davidson. It's like you don't schedule Belmont, Rick Byrd. You don't schedule McCullough and Davidson. Just you're asking for trouble because they're they're some of the great coaches in our game, and their teams are hard to guard because of the way they play and shoot the basketball. But I just felt like the challenge of that opponent. They're picked in the top 2 or 3 in the A-10 this year, as well as getting our team to go to Annapolis and experience that. That's something we didn't want to pass up on. We are in a series with an in-state program that's at the mid-major level in South Alabama. I just don't know how many SEC teams actually go on the road and play programs like we did UAB and like we are now with South Alabama. That's going to be a real challenging event. And as they bring almost everybody back, plus they had 3 or 4 kids sitting out, so we played exceptionally well last year at home on that one. So Mobile will be a real challenge for us early in the season. The neutral site, the importance of the Mike's Live Invitational continuing to exist and potentially grow into something special. The foundation, for prostate cancer research is going and growing up in Birmingham. The dream would be someday it gets as big as the V Foundation. So we're helping it launch by playing St. Louis University there this year. The interesting thing about our schedule is the best way for our fans to maybe be able to buy a ticket and see us play is to buy a ticket in Birmingham, or buy a ticket in Mobile, or buy a ticket in Annapolis, or in Brooklyn as we play in the Legacy Classic, because there just aren't many tickets to be had at Auburn Arena. And certainly want to make sure we get that message out. Attitude's been really good in practice. The culture, the work ethic, the guys want to is definitely there. The interesting thing as we get into the heart of our practice season is whether or not we're going to be able to build on a daily basis some of the successes or failures that we have in practice. In other words, so far I've had to continue to go back and sort of reteach and go back to some of the same mistakes that we're making, where we've got to be able to move forward. And that's because we've got so many newcomers, and that our ability to get past that is going to be important. And then just looking back at last season, especially as it relates to this team, Jared Harper's 3rd year, Bryce Brown's 4th year. Chuba Kika was one of the smartest players that I've ever coached, and we talked about how good he was all the time, and we saw how good he was at the end of the season last year. And then Horace, a 4th-year player, and Malik had been in his 2nd year. Never to mention Austin in his 3rd year, and Danjo in his 3rd year, and Anthony in his 3rd year. There was just a lot of experience. Javon McCormick was the only newcomer, and he didn't really show up until late in the year. which just tells you how challenging that learning curve is. That's our biggest obstacle right now, is just that learning curve. So excited to get started. Excited about our length, our size, our athleticism. Our biggest challenge is going to be our seniors. All are going to be playing a brand new role. All 5 of those seniors, if you think about it, are going to be asked to do something different than what they did a year ago. Which one of the newcomers can come in and help out, pretty quickly, and then handling the challenges of the SEC, continue to be building into arguably one of the, if not the best basketball conference in the country.
Bruce, just getting Stretch on campus, what have you seen out of him early on?
Well, I think getting Stretch on campus, Babatunde Akingbola Adebayo, it was really very special because there was a possibility that he was going to be with us last year, and then we had to wait on some issues with his visa and things like that, and so we were prayerful and hopeful that things would work out, and it did, for him to be able to come back and be all good. So blessed for that. He is, first of all, to be able to go up against Austin every day. It's great for Austin to now finally have a big guy to go up against, challenging him in the post. And, his ability to communicate defensively. His defense is ahead of his offense. He's got ridiculous length, changing shots, impacting us on the defensive end. But he's been out of basketball for 9 months, so he's obviously got some catching up to do. But we've got a veteran front line, and so with Austin and Danjel and Anthony, those 3 guys are all going to play. So the question is going to be which of the newcomers on the front line are going to be able to step in and complement those guys, and certainly Stretch is one of the candidates.
What's your number 1 developmental goal for Danjel? What are you really pushing him to get better at his next 6 weeks?
I think taking on the personality of being willing to be more of a dominant player, to really look to hunt his shot because he's a great shooter for a player his size, and probably be a little more selfish, particularly at the offensive end. At the same time, utilize him a lot like we utilize Chuma as an inside-out player, both offensively and defensively. They played the same position. They do a lot of things similarly, but I think Danjel can learn from some of the things that Chuma did that I think Danjel has, but doesn't always show. Danjel's a better outside shooter than Chuma, and but there are also a lot of intangible things that Chuma did that Danjel can do. So just being more dominant, just being more assertive. Danjel had an off season where he became one of our hardest workers, and that's a big jump, simply from the standpoint of always had talent, but through a number of different reasons, including some setbacks, he's just never been able to put it all together. This is the closest he's been to being able to put it all together, and as a result, I think he can have a breakout season.
Bruce, can you talk about having 13 guys on scholarship, the competition for playing time this year?
Well, I think because the newcomers were all recruited the right way, in the sense that none of them were promised a Rose Garden. They all knew that there was a senior class in front of them, and so there weren't a ton of promises made other than here's what the opportunities are. So for some of the newcomers, it'll be, can they help us this year? But for all of them, it's going to be, and getting ready for the following year, to become sophomores, to have that second year in under their belt, so on and so forth. So the competition is really good. Practices, I'm actually able to run 3 teams right now, which I haven't been able to do. That means I've got, You know, if I've got 13 guys on scholarship right now, I can run 2 teams of our top players plus a scout team. That's really good to be able to work on different things. And it's helping us as far as the learning curve.
Bruce, how would you describe Isaac Okoro, one of those freshmen, and kind of what he brings to the table?
Well, Isaac is a physically dominating player. He's a winner. His jersey has been retired at McEachern High School as a national, state champion and the national champion a year ago. He wants to be defined by his defense, his physicality, his rebounding. He's working really hard on his outside shooting. That's been the one area that people would say, well, can Isaac shoot the basketball from the perimeter? The mental hurdle of being able to be so dominant off the bounce and in other ways, shape, or form, and the willingness to just let it go and understand that he can shoot the basketball, that's going to be a process for him. Extremely coachable, high basketball IQ, incredible motor, one of the best athletes in our league.